Now this one, I gotta admit, looked interesting to me from the moment I heard about it. It looked like a different spin on the whole superhero genre. It basically explores the idea of what if superheroes were evil? Or rather, what if Superman was evil, because this pretty much steals his whole origin story. I mean, they didn't even try to do anything different here, which did feel a tad bit lazy. They could have at least put some effort into that. But anyway, it's about this kid who crash lands at a farm, from outer space obviously. And the couple who runs the farm adopts him and raises him as their own. He's a good kid, smart, clever, and overall just a nice, friendly kid. But then he hits puberty and strange things starts to happen. And that's probably my main issue with this movie. Things just start to happen. He basically turns evil overnight, and this actually comes across as a bit of a possession movie in that sense. He wasn't just always an evil kid who grew up to be even more evil. And he wasn't a good kid who went through something and then turned evil either. There just weren't any motivations for his change whatsoever. They just basically happen out of nowhere, and that's a problem. Because if you're gonna have a bad guy, a villain, or even a sort of anti-hero, which I wouldn't call this one, the character needs to have some sort of clear motivations for what he's doing. Especially if he wasn't always bad. If he was, then fair enough, I guess. He could just be a bad guy who wants to see the world burn. But if he's actually a nice guy like this kid, and then suddenly changes drastically, and I do mean drastically as in, well, that escalated quickly, there needs to be some great motivations behind that change. Or it's just not gonna work, because if there aren't any, things just happen. There isn't really any logic or reason to any of it. And that's exactly the issue with this movie. Things just happen. No reason, no explanation, no character arcs or motivations driving it all. As I said, this kid might as well have been possessed by a demon and driven to do all these vile things. Except usually demons in those kind of movies also do have some sort of motivations. At least some sort of flimsy backstory as to why they do what they do. In this though, that's not the case. Things just happen because why not? And I will say that things got pretty brutal and gory, as this thing is actually R-rated. But none of it makes a lot of sense, and well, the writing isn't exactly great. The dialogue, the story, the characters, it's all very mediocre. And the whole thing kinda ends up feeling just like another one of these cheap horror movies. That being said, it's not a total disaster, it's not the worst thing I've seen. It was still somewhat entertaining in kind of a dumb way. It didn't feel too long or anything like that either. The pacing wasn't awful. And I will admit it made some interesting choices as far as a couple of things went. There are a few things toward the end that I did not expect to see happen. But here's the thing, there was just potential for so much more here. This premise of an evil Superman could have been so much more interesting. But instead it just took that premise and did basically the bare minimum it could have done. I also think that an adult evil Superman would have been a lot more interesting than a kid. But hey, they obviously didn't go for interesting, they just went for sort of entertaining. And it was sort of entertaining, but honestly that's about as much praise as I can give it. Because I gotta admit, this was a bit of a disappointment. And my hopes weren't even that high, I knew it probably wouldn't be amazing. And it still managed to let me down, because I just felt like they didn't really even try. And that's a shame, because the potential for more is here. But would I recommend this thing? Not really, it's kinda dumb. So you can probably skip it. Or don't. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a thumbs up or maybe subbing to the channel. That would be fantastic. I also have a Patreon in case you want to support what I do here. Or you can donate directly to my PayPal account through the link in the description. And as always, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.